Yeah, hello, Cloudie here, checking in from the America server, and today we're gonna be looking at everyone's favorite water priestess slash blue dragon, Laias, who is actually one of the oldest characters in the game, and who has been a pretty famous or popular priest back in the days, mainly because of her mana regen capabilities and for providing a lot of healing and magic defenses to your team. But then, as amp became more important, the more damage you brought from per character was the more important thing, especially in PvE. She saw a steady decline in popularity, and also PvP had more choices that you could take for the priest role, so she kind of disappeared from the game, and now recently she has received the balance patch together with Asalica, which should bring her back at least a little bit. In my opinion, the PvE uses are still very limited, but she is now a lot better in PvP, because of course we needed more magic counters, because magic has the upper hand as always. But okay, let's see what she can and can't do, what she's all about. The setup of the video will be the same. We will go through her skills, her perks, her unique gears, and her soul weapons, and then we will check where actually she could be useful. Let's start with the skills then. So healing droplets, her skill 1, 8-second cooldowns, 2 mana, heals all allies for a certain amount, a decent amount, increases their heal rate for 10 seconds, and if the target's HP is at 50% or below, the heal rate increases. So this is a pretty big AoE heal. Most of the time this tops off everyone in your party. It's quite nice to have. It's a fairly low cooldown with 8 seconds, but it doesn't have a heal over time effect added to it, so it can be a bit a bit hard, let's see, to use, especially in an auto mode. This should be somewhat offset by her skill 2, which is a shield called Bubble Shield. 3 mana, 15-second cooldown. For 15 seconds, cast a shield that blocks a quite large number. Now, usually AoE shields are a bit smaller and single target shields are larger. Compared to, say, Rehartna, this is pretty powerful. This is a fairly low attack, like 300k attack, Lias, and that's 6 million damage shield. But this will be targeting the ally with the lowest HP, so only one character. While the shield is active, gains immunity to CC, so the targeted character cannot be CC'd, gets 35k attack buff, and gets a heal over time effect. So it's a decent shield. It brings an attack buff and some healing. On top of that, the ally that has been targeted by this will take reduced damage from non-hero targets and deal increased damage to non-hero enemies by 15%. So 15% is quite decent actually for a baseline buff that you just get from the skill itself. And this effect, both the reduction effect and the increased damage effect, are not removable, so you cannot dispel it. Well, most PvE stuff doesn't dispel you anyway, so that's alright. Now the main issue with this is what I found in PvE, that she's still a bit hard to integrate into teams, because that's really the only buff she brings, and this either targets randomly the character with the lowest health, or there is a perk that can make it target your highest attacker, which you will kind of need to take. But in that case, for instance, you can shield your tanks and stuff like that, which, for instance, in Eclipse can be a problem. But yeah, let's move on and see how we get around those stuff. Then there is her S3, Festival of the Flow. This was her most famous skill, so to say. Deals some magic damage to nearby enemies and knocks them down for 3 seconds. Upon casting, heals HP of all allies by 15% of their max HP, and recovers 2 orbs of mana of all allies excluding self. Afterwards, for 12 seconds, creates a whirlpool every 4 seconds that deals damage to random enemies and knocks them down for 2 seconds. So basically, Laias is in PvP would often open with this skill, because it would give mana to everyone else, plus give them some healing, plus bring a stun both up front and then have a random stun to various enemies. So this is something that you often saw in Arena being used by Lias where they wanted to give mana to their team and wanted to stun the enemy team or knock them down. So yeah, that's the main use of the skill, and it was kind of her signature skill for a very long time. On top of that, there is the Blessing of the Water Dragon, increases the CC resistance of Laias by 500, and I believe this is one of the updates she received in the balance patch, and increases all allies M defense by 4.7k, plus 5% of Lias' M defense. So 100k M defense Lias would give you like 5k M defense. Yeah, that's like alright-ish, not really too much. And then crit resistance by 250, which on the other hand is quite nice. Whenever Lias casts an active skill, reduces M damage the all allies take by 25%, so this also comes with magic toughness. Now her cooldowns are pretty long, 8 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds I believe for the S3, so yeah, it might not be up all the time, but still this in itself brings a fairly decent damage reduction against magic damage, so that's quite nice to have. So these are her main skills. Let's see how the Transcendence perks actually play into this one. Now of course we have the usual tier 1, tier 2 stuff, and then moving on we have skill 1, Light. Heal rate is increased by 40%, so she heals a bit more. Alright, that's alright-ish. Now this one, upon healing, magic crit resistance is increased by another 25%. That's quite nice, especially in PvP. If you remember, her S4 already adds quite a bit of crit resistance, 250, so 25%. And then you get some more from this, which can be, well, it's an 8-second cooldown skill. It doesn't say how long this lasts, so that's an interesting thing. But yeah, you can have like 50% crit resistance just from these two things, so that's quite nice to have. This is usually picked in PvP build Liases, so this is a perk they usually pick. I don't think this one has much use, more healing, so usually it's not the healing rate that is capping her healings, in my opinion, and it's an AoE heal anyway. So let's see, Bubble Shield Light changes the target to the ally with the highest attack, so that's quite nice. If you want the buff to go always to your main DPS, so if you want to use her in more of a buffer role. The problem is there is only one target ever. And like for instance, I like to run her in Eclipse because I have 10 teams and I need all the healers and tanks I can get. And here I have to make the choice: do I shield my tank, who will stop receiving heals after a while and may just die on me, or do I get the buff for my DPS so I do more damage? So this is kind of my problem with PvE Lias, that if I'm going an 8-man team, then I don't really see too many uses or where I can replace other characters with her. And if I go a 4-man team, then I kind of have to choose between survival and buffing with this skill. So yeah, that's kind of the issue. And then Bubble Shield Dark decreases the mana cost by 1. I don't really see anyone picking this one. Maybe again PvP, but her shield is dispellable, so it's like whatever. It could be a PvP thing if you can afford taking it. Moving on, her S3. So the damage effect of the skill after the main effect will occur every 3 seconds instead of 4 seconds. So more CC and damage coming from her. I don't know, it's randomly targeted, so it could be good, but nowadays PvP, everyone and their mother is CC immune, so maybe not that useful. The other perk gives changes the target of the Whirlpool to the enemy with the highest attack, so all the CC will be targeting the highest attacker. This could be good if the enemy team is not someone with CC immunity, which is pretty rare, let's be honest. But maybe if you have an extra Transcendence page perk, extra Transcendence perk page, okay, I almost got that right, then you can switch to this one if you are, say, in League of Honor and facing someone who will not be CC immune. I don't know if that's really worth, but yeah, there is that option. Moving on. Magic defense increases by 20%, and M crit resistance increases by 150. This one is, as far as I got this part, this will only affect the base part, so this one, and not the one that the really large number that is, or larger number that's coming from her own magic defense. So this is kind of scuff. I don't know why I actually have it, maybe because I didn't have anything else I wanted. And increases the magic crit resistance by another 15%, which is quite nice, so that's like okay to have. In PvP, on the other hand, the damage reduction effect becomes irremovable, so that's quite nice. This is what you would probably pick in PvP, because then you are less prone to be losing your damage reduction buffs due to the spells. So there is that. And then there is of course her dark perk recovers 350 mana of all allies every 3 seconds, so still works as a mana battery, provides a lot of mana to everyone. Yeah, that's a really good thing to have usually, unless you are already swimming in mana. And then there is her light perk with just an extra M block to herself. So yeah, her perks are kind of weird in a sense that you get some more crit resistance, you can be undispellable, you can have less mana. But most of these seem to be leaning towards PvP use. Like most of these you don't really want in PvE. You can get some more magic resistance and magic defense, but it's not really too much, and you can get some extra crit resistance. But yeah, like this is probably the only thing you would take in PvE. From the S3 perks or tier 3 perks, and even this can be a bit questionable depending on the situation. I kinda like my tank not dying due to having a shield, and so I guess I can sacrifice this one, but maybe there are some situations where you can pick this one. Okay, so that's all about her perks, I believe. We can move on to her unique gears, the unique weapon and the unique treasures that you should use with her. So first and foremost, let's look at her unique weapon, which is fairly simple actually. Let's just going to increase the heal rate of all allies by 14%, and this part scales with the stars. Here starts at 8%, and the magic defense by 5% of Lias' attack. So she gives magic defense based on her attack, and she gives magic defense based on her own magic defense, which is an interesting thing. Every 5 seconds heals the ally with the lowest HP by 100% of own attack, and this also scales with the stars on the weapon, so this goes up to 20% heal rate and 250% healing or based on her own attack. So that's quite alright. Every 5 seconds plus every 8 seconds she can use her S1, and there is the shield. So her healing output is quite nice. It's just not really AoE focused in that regard, that this one will only hit one target, the shield only hits one target, so she really only has her S1 and her S3 for AoE heals. That might mean that in those 8 seconds somebody dies, so especially on auto runs this can be a problem, but as far as I am aware she can heal actually Gargoria nowadays, so that's a good thing. Let's move on to her unique treasures. Starting with the S1, this is what you would use in PvP. Most of the PvP Liases I have seen are wearing the S1 healing droplets on, because it increases the heal rate, which is alright in PvP, and increases the target's M block by 200 baseline, and this is the part that also scales with the stars on the unique treasure. You get 500 M block, and this lasts 10 seconds. So that's quite nice actually, because the skill itself is an 8-second cooldown. So you get free M block, which makes you so much tankier against magic damage. So yeah, this is what they use in PvP. Moving on, let's see S2. Bubble shield reduces the cooldown and dispels negative effects from the target. So this is a cleanse on the target, and the cooldown reduction. A 30% cooldown is 5 seconds, so it's not 10-second cooldown, 15-second duration. So technically you can easily reach over 100% duration with this, but you can't really get it cast on 2 targets at the same time. Maybe if you combined her with some extra cooldown reduction it would be possible, but yeah. So I from all of the unique treasures she has, I would probably pick this one for PV use, simply because the reduced cooldown lets her have a better uptime of her shield. So with a 15-second duration, 15-second uptime, there is a bit of a gap while she's casting, or while she gets to cast at all. This way she can have it up at a more reliable rate. So, and it is a big heal, it is a big shield, and it is bringing some non-hero damage reduction and increase. So that's kind of nice. So for PvE, I would probably go with this one, but in my mind, Lias is still not really a PvE priest, so whatevs. Now this other one, Festival of the Flow. So the Whirlpool effect targets 2 enemies and all allies recover 600 additional mana. So this starts at 500 and goes up to 1250. So yeah, again, one of the PvP things where she was mostly used as a CC'er. This was pretty powerful then, that she could do so much CC, and you would get not just 2 orbs but like 3.2 orbs. That's quite powerful. Nowadays I think this is the CC effect is not that strong anymore, and yeah, well, mana can be good, but like only if you really go for burst teams. Nowadays most PvP teams are more bruiser like, so I think this one is less useful. There are some situations like, say, Kallax challenge rate that specifically deals in mana burning, so there it could be like good. Yeah, but I will still go with either this one for PvP and this one for PvE, and maybe keep a copy of this one around for times when you need the extra mana from that skill. And finally, S4 increases the death boost by 50%, and all allies recover mana by a certain amount, and this starts from 40 and then goes up to 100 mana per sec. Now this one feels like a bit of a trap to me, because it says increases the death boost, but this should only be the base defense, not the one that she gives from her own MDef. And we tested this a bit with the amazing Okami, and 160k M defense Laias using this unique treasure was reducing the dot ticks of my Lorraine by a whole 1%, 1% more than she was without the UT4. So definitely not a giant increase in defense, and that was like, okay, you can have a lot more defense on a character if you put your mind to it, but yeah, it didn't feel like it was really game changing or worth picking over, say, 500 M block, which would okay, it wouldn't reduce the dots, but it would reduce all the other burst type damage. So yeah, and well, 100 MP sec is not bad, but it's not that terribly great either. So I kind of feel like this is more of a trap kind of thing. I wouldn't go with this one. So I think that's all about her unique gears. Let's see what we can actually find out about her soul weapon. So let's see, the Unleashed Flowing Circle Altoir, or whatever you pronounce it. So dispels negative effects from self and allies and summons the soul of the weapon for 12 seconds, healing all allies HP by a certain amount and recovering mana by something every second. So it gives a decent heal and mana recovery, lasts for 12 seconds. Has a lot of uses, decent cooldown, so that's alright-ish, and you need to use skills to actually charge it. Now advancement phase 1 is where it becomes interesting. Increases the healed allies M defense, so everyone's M defense, by 10%, and M block by 200, and this effect stacks up to 5 times. So as this starts casting, it applies the buff again and again and again, and it goes up all the way to 5 times, where this would be like a 50% M defense boost and like 1k M block, which is a lot. That's like a whole lot of M block. This can be pretty useful in some situations, both in PvP and in, say, PvE. Trial of Flow comes to mind, so yeah, this could be quite nice. And then advancement phase 2, For the duration of the skill, Seth becomes immune to all damage, and cooldown of all active skills is reduced by 1 every second. So every second her cooldowns go down. That's quite nice actually. Or and one cooldown, well, the cooldowns go down every second anyway, but they go down one sec every even more. Alright, I kinda managed to come out of that. Yeah, so that's also good. Makes her a super survivor, and she can cast her skills again faster. So that's quite good. But again, no amp added to it. So that's kind of her issue in PvE. I would say that basically the only amp she has is from her shield, which you either have to force onto your highest attacker, in which case it won't shield anyone else, or you kind of gamble that it will be your highest attacker who has the lowest HP all the time, which may or may not be the case. Now for gearing itself, for TM gears, I would say you could go ham on the shield, both going for extra shield power and S2 cooldown if you wanted to spend it more. The problem is that because she doesn't shield herself, she becomes quite likely to get gibbed by damage burst, like say Gargoria. And remember, she only heals every 8 seconds. So probably instead of going a pure attack build, I would go heavier with M block and M defense. Remember, she also gives stuff based off of her own M defense, so you can do that like that. You could use a Gargoria set for the stronger heals and shields, or of course you could go a more traditional buffer way and take the Escalon set with the extra bonus to attack for all allies, and then get crit damage auras or cooldown reduction, or whichever you use in a given fight. That kind of depends on the fight itself. For PvP, I have seen people mainly use the Gargoria set for the extra shield and heals, of course. Line-wise, it was interesting because a lot of people like to give her like around 400k-ish attack and like over 100k MDef. That's what you could see on her, like in an A220 fully built Lias. And in TM lines, interestingly, the extra fixes attack speed to 1k but increases attack line was used a lot, because of course that makes her shield stronger, that makes her heals stronger, and she doesn't really have any need for speed. It's just her cast times will be slower, but like whatever. So that's one line I've seen a lot of. And other than that, defensive stats, because she really wants to survive. So max HP, MDef, M block, these are the kind of stats you would probably see on her. Her job in PvP is to survive and keep your team alive as well. Yeah, so that's what you should aim for. Now, where can she be used PvE wise? So this is an interesting question. We have tried her in Challenge Raid, in the new one, and she was doing okay but lagged amp. Now of course the current challenge rate has an option where you can turn off all amps, so only the non-hero damage applies. But if you were also running like with a single priest, that might make surviving a little bit trickier, because like there is a lot of damage coming in over a short duration of time. So yeah, not quite sure if she could be like a single priest there. There is of course Trial of Flow, where I believe even before her buff, people were using her to do like auto runs together with Lucikia, because she just makes your team so much tankier. So definitely Trial of Flow would be something where she can be used, both the shield, the heals and the extra mana, and these can be like used there. So that should be one use for her. I don't think any of the world boss or scoring contents really need or can utilize a Laias. So that's kinda out of the window, I believe. Artim can be useful. Artim doesn't use amps, so she's not at a disadvantage there. And the buff from her S2 should be not dispellable, so even if her shield is gone, she can still heal a lot, and the non-hero damage should remain. Of course, the reduction, well, that's a good question, if that's considered toughness or a different layer which is not affected by the arc dim buff. That's a good question now, but she could definitely be used there as a healer, increasing both your M block, M def, and giving a lot of heals there. So that might be some use for her. And I also run her in Eclipse because of the very powerful single target shield. Even like a less powerful team can go to like in the 40s. Keeping the tank alive is usually one of the harder parts for me when I'm running non-shield heroes, and her shield is really good on the tank. The problem is that if you do not take this perk, then again your attacker will not get the benefits from her, and if you take it, then you have to keep the tank alive with like an 8-second cooldown skill, which may not be enough depending on how well your tank is built. So yeah, PvE advice, it's rather hard to find a niche for her, I think. The problem is that like even flow and challenge raid you can do without her, so why build her in the first place then for PvE? PvP, she is a pretty strong counter for magic teams, so there she can be a lot more powerful, and there are a lot more of her out there nowadays, so that's one thing to consider. So I'm not quite sure what the intent was of Vespa when they did her revamp or balance pass, but this is what it became, and this is how she is now. So yeah guys, this is my take on the new Lias. Let me know what you guys think, write it in the comment section below, and this has been Cloudie for now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.